Hello, this is Joseph Lugo. Let's go through the Colloquium project. So to start out, just want to connect my focus and learning goals to the California standards for the teaching profession and the World Languages Standard for California Public Schools. So the CSTP standard that I'm going to use is 1.4, which is using a variety of instructional strategies, resources, and technologies to meet students' diverse learning needs. And with that will be also California World Languages Standards Communication Standard number 4, which is settings for communication. So in that, students use language in highly predictable common daily settings. That's the novice level. I teach Spanish 1. So it'll be mostly that, but there's a little bit of this as well, the intermediate, transactional, and some informal settings. So that's what I'm mostly going to focus on teaching the students to be able to do. A little bit more detail on that. Students use language in highly predictable common daily settings, so they recognize opportunities to use age-appropriate, culturally authentic, real-world, and academic language in the highly predictable common daily settings. And also transactional and some informal settings. We'll get into that intermediate-wise. We start some of that early in the year, but mostly that comes, as you go deeper. So again, participate in opportunities to use age-appropriate, culturally authentic, real-world, and academic language in transactional and some informal settings. So that's what I'm doing. Now, my goal is to be able to create and maintain effective distance learning that allows me to present new material, interact with students on a regular basis, and assign, collect, assess, and record their work, and let them see the results of that assessment in a timely manner. Now, as I do this colloquium, we are in a weird spot right now. We're in a weird spot with all this distance learning and looking at who knows what is coming in the fall. So I did not want to waste any moments going back and talking about the things that I learned over the past year and a half, kind of my success stories and all that, because I wanted to focus more on learning what I need to learn to teach my students right now, my 240 students I have at the moment, and the 200 I would imagine I would have in the fall. So this is going to be a little bit strange because I'll be going back sometimes and talking about things that were in the past, but when I'm looking at goals and what I'm learning to do, I really am focusing on this distance learning component that I'm highlighting right here on this slide. Okay, so after having said that, I go right back to this collaboration, because this is I've been doing this as well. So this holds for both the past, the quote unquote normal setting that I was in for the year and a half of induction, and then also this crazy time that we've been going through since COVID-19. So lots of collaboration with my mentor. She's fantastic. The assistant principal, also just a fantastic help. The principals at Golden West and Vanden. At Golden West, didn't interact with the principal as much because I've been at the school longer than he has. He comes in and he thinks I'm somebody that knows what I'm doing, and hopefully I am. But at Vanden, I haven't taught at Vanden before, and so that was kind of a last-minute thing that happened second semester, and so I interacted with the principal there a lot and was really helped by her coming in and giving me that extra attention, which I appreciated greatly. So different ways of interacting with both principals, but they both did what they needed to do, and I appreciate it. Golden West, working with the special ed people there, they're great, and they provide the support and the insight that I would just flounder without if I didn't have them there. Golden West Counseling Office, again, there were some issues there where I needed to talk with them there, and they were available, so we collaborated. Golden West teachers, with me teaching Spanish, I'm in electives, so there's some things I have in common with shop and art and some, odd kind of a group there to put us all together. But then I also have maybe the most in common with the ELA teachers, so I talk with them, a lot of them individually, getting ideas from them, help from them, and then also history. I was a history major, and I enjoy history, and I like to incorporate it in my classes. It's very easy when you're teaching Spanish in California and I'm from Texas, and so you have the overlap, the history, and so it's usually students seem to find it very interesting. So I collaborate with them as well. And then the Vanden High School World Languages teachers were phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about them. They were very supportive and helpful, and collaborating with them was so key in me figuring out how to do distance learning and how to teach Spanish 2, which I never really taught before. And so here, very quickly, evidence that illustrates a change in my teaching. Again, I could go back and give you some really good ones from the past, but instead I'm going to do some really shallow, shaky ones that are in the present, because these are the ones that have to get better for me to make it through the semester that's coming up. So YouTube videos. I learned how to do this. It should be very simple, but for my tech situation I have in my house, I'm not doing this from school. I had a lot of obstacles. And in the end, I was making 12, 16 YouTube videos a week, just a lot of them. They're very rough, but they get the job done. So I use those. Edmodo is something that I had to come up with something to be able to interact with the students, give them their assignments, and then get them back where I could find them all in one place with so many students. So I was able to do Edmodo with my Spanish 2 class at Vanden, and so that was very helpful to only have one class of 34 instead of trying to do this with all 240 students. I thought about it and just decided it was going to be so much more work at Golden West with the students not responding as well as the students at Vanden were. So I will be going forward with Edmodo or whatever the district says they're going to support, or our curriculum in the fall. And then Screencast-O-Matic, finally learning some kind of program I could use to do what I'm doing right now, to show students my screen while I talk about it. So those are 3 big things that I worked on. There were changes in my teaching that had to be done. Something had to be done in this arena, and this is what I came up with as a way to let my students get a lesson from me in about, I don't know, 3 5-minute segments, maybe longer each, so that they wouldn't be overwhelmed with a 40-minute lesson or some craziness like that when they're home. And then they could go back and review it as much as they wanted to. And so then with Edmodo, I was able to set up quizzes for them to then take and get feedback. And now with Screencast-O-Matic, I can also do the same thing using PowerPoint presentations or things like that. So differentiating instruction to meet the needs of all my students. What I learned about my class is that their needs are varied, that they respond best when I speak their language. So if it's being very encouraging, or if it's joking around with them, if it's catching them as they come in the door, if it's getting their parents to really ride them, whatever it is, speaking their language, common interest, whatever it is. Most will respond to my attention with an increased effort in class. Most of the students, if I give them more attention, most of them give me more work. And so that's good to know. What have I learned about my focus students? That overlooked students will often make noticeable improvement when they are addressed. So that was very helpful, just to see that if I just identify, oh my goodness, I'm overlooking this student, that change can happen if I get on it quickly. How have I differentiated instruction to meet the needs of all students? I've changed groups. I've changed reasoning behind why groups are together, how long they stay together, learning styles, using more motion or more writing or more speaking out loud or more individual, whatever it might be, more time, giving some students more time to do their work, approaching some students privately and saying, hey, we have a week off next week. If you want to go back and do these things over, I'll grade them and get back to you. Family support, getting family involved. Some of the evidence that I have an ability to set standards for student behavior is if you just come into my classes and see how they behave. So that is a big proof. And most students cooperate. Those who don't cooperate know that I will work with parents to improve their focus. I'll call them. I might write little notes and leave them on where only they can see them as I walk by the desk, or I might write with an erasable marker the beginning digits of their parent's phone number, knowing that I'm about to call them if they don't get on task, things like that. Key insights would be clearly communicated expectations and follow through tend to pay off. Most students will lay low to their detriment if I let them, and that goes for even the really dedicated students. If I just leave them to their own devices, they're gonna lay low sometimes when they should raise their hand or ask for help. So I need to be aware of that. An idea is that during distance learning, I can focus on teaching a lesson that students can review as much as necessary, and then I need to assess them in a way that gives them immediate feedback, and then make their assignment to ask me questions about the things they still don't understand after working on the assignment and being shown the answers, rather than just, here's work, you do it, I grade it, it takes a day or longer to get it back, that kind of stuff. That is helpful. What's the best way? Question I have, what's the best way for me to teach, assign, collect, and assess, and reteach remotely? So that's me, who I am as a person, but even more importantly, probably the subject I teach, the students, my exact situation I'm going to have next year. So I need to do a lot of research and have a couple of different approaches that I think I'm going to use depending on the scenario I get next year. How can I accurately and fairly assess a student during distance learning? That's really tricky. If we have an extended distance learning time and I have to actually do an examination or something like that, how in the world am I going to do that fairly with a lot of students? I can do it with a few, or I can watch them one at a time and all that kind of stuff. I'll call it that. But how can I do that with classes? That's something I've been asking questions about, and I'm trying to find some solutions to that. There are some things that help, but I haven't found anything that nails it down. Evidence of my ability to communicate with parents and families, having their cell phone numbers in my pocket, or I just call them they're in my phone, having meetings with them, having parents come in and observe the class so students will understand if I misbehave. My mother may come here next week and just sit behind me and watch contracts with the parents and the students. How have my students benefited from my reflections on teaching? Overlooked students got more attention. By me reflecting and doing this induction process in a formal way, I was able to identify some overlooked students that were just flying under the radar for way too long. It was embarrassing. I was really embarrassed. I thought, oh my gosh, this girl, I just looked right over her. So that was helpful to know that can happen to me if I don't have organized times to ensure that doesn't just keep happening to these poor, quiet kids. Teaching methods got adjusted, lesson plans were changed, lessons were retaught, because I was reflecting and going, they don't know this well enough to move forward, and groups were reformed. What I learned about myself as a teacher is that regular reflection is helpful and it comes naturally to me. Regular reflection actually greatly reduces stress in me because it gives me specific tasks to focus on, rather than this nebulous pattern of dread of waiting for the other shoe to fall, knowing that I don't have it all together. That's my default, is dread with teaching. So a regular reflection helps me go, okay, that may be true, but let me focus on this because this is important. And then at least as I'm working on something specific, the stress is greatly reduced because I'm actually working instead of worrying. I'm open to help from others. I benefit from their help and I enjoy it. I kind of like asking for help in a way. I definitely like receiving it because I tend to remember who taught me what forever. I tend to remember, oh yeah, she was the one that did that, or he did that, and that was so cool. So I'm very relational. So it kind of makes the being at school with other teachers more meaningful to me because I can't spend as much time with them, but I can spend time doing the things they taught me, and I feel kind of close to them because of that. That's weird, but that's how I am. I have to purposefully set a boundary somewhere because there are always more things to do to help the individual student that's falling behind or could really excel, or the class as a whole. So I have to purposely say, I'm not staying here past 7 o'clock tonight, or I'm not gonna, whatever it might be. So I just know I have to set that. I'm not going to get enough done to feel like it's done, time to go home. And finally, how will I use what I've learned? I'll continue to use this inquiry process because it's helpful to me and it's natural to me, comes naturally pretty much. I will continue it because it clarifies what I should focus upon. in order to prepare the next lesson, the matter at hand. It really helps. Identify individual students' needs and the students of particular classes. Sometimes classes are, each class period can be very different, have a personality, have a thing it needs. Help specific students and expand my overall effectiveness as a teacher, as an educator, and just as a youth supporter in general. So thank you.